I've been thinking to myself recently, I've been making every video with Sir Speedo, and I've kind of thought, why? Why am I doing that? I say, who needs them? That's why today I'm going to do something even more dangerous than a rocket. Something absolutely incredible, as I say. See, what happened was, when I was actually out at the Dominican, I ordered a package, right? It was actually probably the most expensive, largest package I've ever ordered. It's in the background, it's right there. It's that thing. Do you know what this is? What you do with it is it essentially melts down metal that I can cast into whatever I really want. I've been wanting one of these for pretty much a decade now, ever since I was a child. When I first got onto YouTube in about 2007, I think I saw people start using these. Or at least not the electric ones, but I saw them using, gas-powered ones and stuff, melting down metal and making stuff out of it, and I thought, wow, that looks like a really fun hobby. And I've never been able to do it, because I never had money for one. I could have always built one, but I didn't want to die in the process, and I never could properly do it. I didn't want to spend money on propane. So what did I do? I bought that thing. See, at first I started melting down bullet casings, which I ended up creating this bar, this big bar, and a couple other things. But, bullet casings, they're hard to melt down, They're pretty much at the very peak of what that thing can melt. Not to mention the fact that it also blows all the fuses in my house if I try to melt things for too long, because it draws so much power, around 2100 watts, that it will literally start making the fuses pop because it's drawing way too much power. So my solution is I'm going to use a different metal, and I'm actually going to just stop using the bullet casings entirely. I can make other stuff with them. I'm going to start using aluminum, and I figured, what's the best source of aluminum that I could use without going down to a junkyard and not knowing what metal is what? Aluminum foil, my friends. Now, the thing is, aluminum foil, as you know, it's very thin. It's extremely hard to, make a lot of volume out of aluminum foil, or at least a lot of solid volume. You saw those, that trend back when the Japanese foil ball was around, I think. But, the good thing about this is that there is actually a lot of aluminum in the foil. It's just, hard to obtain. Look at this. This is all, you can't really crush this down much more. This is pure aluminum, and it's about a foot-long pipe and a centimeter all around. It's a lot, if you really think about it. Not to mention, I have 3 of these rolls. I actually did the math, because I think each little sheet of aluminum foil is roughly around 0.063 millimeters thick. It's thinner than a sheet of paper. The thing about it is that it's so thin that, it seems like there's nothing there, but this is 200 square feet. And, well, the good thing about that is that you can find the volume from that. And I found that per roll, there's around 18 cubic inches of aluminum, which, wow. Now I know, 18 cubic inches, that's barely anything. I could barely make a cube of 3x3 with that. I couldn't actually make that. I could maybe make a 2x2 cube, but, it just doesn't work as much. But, 54 cubic inches total is what I have with all 3 of these rolls. And a good thing about this is the fact that it's not a ton of aluminum, I know, but the furnace can't fit that much. It can only fit about 3 kilos of metal, and these are already about 2 or 3 pounds as it is. This could probably, this could fill up probably an entire crucible there. Let me just show you the furnace to show you what I'm talking about. This is the LMF, the Legoshi Melting Furnace. Why do I call it that, you may ask? Well, hence the little stickers of Legoshi from Beastars on both sides of this glorious machine. Now, there's a lot of practical uses to this machine where I can make parts for things, I can make little casted sculptures if I really wanted to. I can pretty much make whatever I want, given the volume of the crucible on the inside. And the way it works is it has a heating element on the inside chamber of this thing that then sends heat into this pure graphite crucible, and well, it heats up from there. And there's a little temperature gauge on the side here, a little switch, and there's a really thick plug for the thing on the outside. The thing about this is that I can pretty much melt anything between the range of 0 degrees to about 2200 Fahrenheit. And although it barely ever gets up to that hot because it blows all the fuses before it gets there, it does have the capability. And it's a cool machine, okay, I'll say that as much. It was hard to get because the first time the Amazon seller actually lost it in the factory or their warehouse. Doesn't matter though, they managed to get the thing over to me. The thing is pretty much in perfect condition. It's completely fine. Actually, I don't need this. This was when my uncle was over, and we actually, he said, you should put a label on that. I don't really care about labels. If someone goes and touches this and they, they know what it is, it's their fault. Now, I bet you're probably curious as to how I'm gonna get the aluminum from the roll into the crucible. Well, I'm gonna do it the same way anybody else would, by acting like a cat with a roll of toilet paper. No, that doesn't mean that I'm just gonna roll the entire thing out into my room. Having fun? So am I. And I'm not even halfway through the roll yet. Oh, hello. Aluminium. We've reached the end of the roll. Now I bet you're wondering, what are you gonna do with so much aluminum? Look, I gotta find ways to compress this all down to a very small size. So I'm gonna tear it into manageable pieces and then use a bench vise to clamp the thing together. And then, well, we're gonna have small pieces of aluminum that I can then melt down. See, look, I actually made this little aluminum loaf out of a bunch of foil, but I still have a lot, okay? By the way, this is 1 roll out of 3. I am not doing the other 3 today, but you know what? I have a lot, okay? And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make them into those loaves. I'm gonna go out there with a bench vise. I'm gonna crank them down a bit, make them a bit smaller, more manageable. Cause I mean, even though like I may not be strong enough to like push this down a lot, a bench vise will be able to. And I can just make a bunch of these loaves, go down and crush them, and I can stick them in the furnace and make some ingots. I'd record the process of doing all of these, but let's be honest, nobody wants to watch just footage of me crushing up aluminum. I'm just gonna make it shorter. And you know, honestly, I think it'll be better that way, because then I have more time to go showcase what the furnace does later. So it all works out. So it's been about 40 minutes, and my hands are now pain. They hurt. Okay, it's not nice to crush aluminum, but you know, it's fine. Because I was able to make this, about 9 of them. This pile of aluminum bricks, they're still like pretty compressible. I know I can compress them, but not much with my hands. The bench vise, I'll go do the rest with that. I'll crush them down lengthwise and then width and then height, and it should be fine then. I'll also crush the corners to kind of make them into cylinders so they can fit into the furnace, because this thing, it's a cylinder. You know, it's not gonna fit if I don't do it like that. Regardless, should be good. And now begins the process of the vise. After sitting out here for a little while, contemplating how I'm gonna do this, I realized that the vise is not the best option. It takes so long to crank it repeatedly back and forth. And you know what I realized is better than a vise? A giant hammer. This has made it so that I can now make these things in about 1/4 of the time it would take me to make with the vise. So much easier. I'll cut to when I'm done. It's now been an hour after that clip, and I'm sitting up in my room, kind of sitting down and resting, because my gosh, that was tiring. You have no idea. That hammer is 5 pounds, and although 5 pounds isn't heavy, having to repeatedly lift it up with your wrist over and over again is a taxing job. Though I will say, every single one of these bars actually does fit into my furnace. I have, 9 of them now, but a lot of them are kind of like this, where they're like more cylinder shaped or, just square. And it's better because I can take them now, and you see this? Look at that, boom, it fits. We can cut to tomorrow when I'll actually be melting these things down into a bar. Welcome, we are now on the next day, and I have the furnace right down here all nice and fired up, and I got my foil in here, which I'm gonna grab a piece of, and we're just gonna kind of stick it in there, and we're gonna keep filling up the crucible until it reaches the top, then we melt it all down into a big bar. Should be good. In it goes. So I currently have this thing set for about 800 degrees Celsius, which should roughly be about 150 over the melting point of aluminum, so this thing should be pretty good. I don't know why it's flashing on the camera here. I'm assuming that it's actually flashing pretty fast. I just can't see it, but it's actually just a solid little number for me. It just seems like it's flashing on the camera, which is pretty cool. I'm not gonna say shutter because I don't know if an iPhone has a shutter. I have no idea how cameras really work. All I know is that it's flashing there on the camera, but for me, it's completely fine. I think Sir Speedo should be coming over in a bit. He should be down yonder. I think he's coming over later on, but he'll probably be here by the time I'm putting some more of these things in. By the time it hits that temperature, this thing should be melting. I got my little stirring rod over here, which is coated in brass. When I started melting down the bullet casings, it doesn't like to really touch brass for some reason, but oh well. And it should melt down that. I might use this for sand and just other means of stirring and taking out slag. Should be great. One thing I'm gonna do while this is prepping is I'm gonna take out my sand. This is a mixture of clay and regular like fine sand. And the clay is supposed to give it structure while the sand is kind of just the main body of it. I actually put water in here as well, which I'm gonna put some more of in because it kind of dried out over the time it's been in my attic. But yeah, we kind of
have to put some water in here to just kind of make it keep its shape. You know how like sand at the beach, like next to the water, is like easier to mold and stuff? Well, that's kind of the same concept with this stuff. The more water and the more clay it has in it, the more rigid it is, the better it is at holding a shape for casting. Imagine that this is like a dog that you really just are really angry at, so you want to just kind of like, you know, go all at it with the water. You're just going to take all the water and sand and kind of mix it together and repeat a couple times until the sand can kind of hold its shape a little bit better. So I ended up taking these wooden boards and I put some in the middle and I pounded that down into a bar shape. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to actually, let's see how hot this is. Let's see what this is at. I mean, it's still aluminum foil down there, so, you know, it's going. Now, normally the crucible would get red hot for the brass, but I don't think I need it to get that hot, because aluminum, I think the foil is supposed to melt at around 650, 670, somewhere between that range, degrees Celsius. And I put it up to 800, so I'm assuming that it should be, you know, melting in a little bit. Once it actually starts getting molten, then I can pop the rest of these in, and it should go much faster. Because, I mean, that's going to be hotter than because obviously it has to be hotter than the melting point for it to melt. Because, I mean, it's just going to stay liquid at that temperature, rather if I pour it out, it'll solidify as it falls. So I'm gonna, you know, just pop these into the molten aluminum, which should melt them as they go in, so good times. I'm not gonna try putting this at any higher of a temperature because I don't want to blow the fuses in my house. With the brass, I had to put it in my garage, where I had to take an extension cord from the garage down over to here because it actually drew so much power that it blew the fuse. So I had to go on a fuse that was completely open, and even then it still blew it. So something at this low of a temperature should be much better for both the furnace and the house. Now there is one caveat to actually melting down aluminum, or at least the foil, and that's that it's expensive. It's like $5 per roll, maybe a little bit less. I don't recall how much it was. But one thing I did found was I found an online metal depot, which I'm going to go and buy aluminum from. And luckily, I think for $30, I can buy 20 rods of about a foot long, half-inch aluminum, which is a ton. I mean, obviously it's not like a whole giant amount of aluminum, but it's enough for me to melt a lot of stuff. I mean, if I were to saw those bars in half, who knows? I mean, I could make a ton of things. Just load it all into the crucible, load it up, and then just put it on the temperature. It'll melt down to a huge bar. Should be great. Anyway, it just hit 800, so now it's a matter of just waiting until the stuff melts down, and then I put more of them in, and then we keep going. Well, I just opened it up to check on it, and the bar is almost completely molten already. It was almost up to the top of the crucible when I started, and you know, now look at it, all the way down there. Once that gets down a little farther, I'll start pushing in more bars to kind of melt them all down to load up the full thing. Although, if I can get all that aluminum to fill up that bar, I'm gonna have a giant bar. I mean, honestly, this thing is huge. It's gonna probably not weigh too much, because it's, you know, it's about the weight of a actual, you know, roll of foil, but hey, it's gonna be a big bar. Just loaded in bar number 2, and they're slowly sinking down gradually, so this is gonna fill up pretty well. Actually, this is melting down very well. I didn't think it would actually melt down this good. I mean, I figured that there'd be some resistance and everything, but no, that melted almost immediately all the way down to the bottom. So this is gonna go great. The third bar is now in, and I should, you know, it's going well. Things are going well. You know, it's kind of sad though. I'm out here and I'm looking over there. That's exactly where the rocket went. Somewhere between I think it's that palm tree, that one right down there, you know, right there. I'm pointing at every palm tree. You get my point. The problem is that it's somewhere down there. We just can't get it, and it's very upsetting. Doesn't matter, though. I've got a rocket plan that should blow the socks off of literally everyone that is involved with seeing and making it. I'm actually thinking I might go saw down a couple of these bars in half, because if I push it up, it'll actually displace enough of the aluminum that it'll overflow. And I know I can fit more than one bar into this again, but I'm wanting to saw them down so that I can actually fit them into the thing without literally pouring lava all over the desk or ground. You know what I mean? I don't want to completely kill myself here, no matter how much like it seems I want to. Luckily though, I got a hacksaw. Well, now that I've done that, I have 4 of these tiny little ones that I'm just gonna pop in there. You know, while those are melting, I'm actually gonna go grab a bucket of water so that I can quench the bar when it comes out, because once I pour it in, it doesn't take too long for it to actually solidify. So I'm gonna pour it in there, probably wait a couple of minutes, and I'm gonna just dunk it in a big bucket of water like this so that I can pretty much just take it out and hold it afterwards. Also, one good thing is that the hacksaw cut those things like butter. Because they're not solid aluminum, it's super easy to cut them, so it's very good. Bucket's now pretty full, so I can go back out there and keep melting. I'll be completely honest with you, I think that this aluminum foil may actually fill up more than one crucible. I mean, like, maybe not 2, but I mean, definitely more than 1, because I have 3 of those, like, bricks left, and the thing's almost full. I have one more half of a brick that I just sawed in half, but, you know, I think after that I might pour it, and then maybe pour on top of it, and we'll see what happens from there. Actually, no, I won't pour on top of it. I mean, there's a chance that it might not layer properly, and then it'll just fall out. I'd rather have one bar and then have another tinier bar after, so that's what I'm gonna do. Regardless, though, this thing's almost full of molten aluminum now, so, yeah, nice. Yeah, after this little final half brick melts, I'm gonna end up pouring it, because I don't want to risk putting any more in there, because it may end up just, well, being a problem, and I don't exactly want that. So, after that goes in, I should be able to, you know, have someone come out here and help film that of the pouring, and, yeah, should go well. Actually, no, I'll do a tripod, because I don't trust other people with filming this, because, you know, this is a big moment, and I don't exactly want it to go unchecked. I'm going to start filming from here now, so you can see the whole process of everything. This thing is pretty much completely full. I'm going to wipe off some of the slag at the top, and we should be good to pour then. I'm gonna put on my respirator now so I don't die.
You know the one from the channel logo? Yeah, it's this. Anyway, I'm just gonna take the slag off the top here and pop it on the bottom over here just next to everything else. Because it's not gonna do any damage down there. But there is some molten aluminum on that, but it should be good by the time I'm done here, so no problems there. But on the inside, my friends, is pure molten aluminum, so we are pretty much good to go. Same on the end of this, just pure aluminum. And with that, we're pretty much good to pour. First thing I have to get is the gloves. I have thick bound gloves that I'm going to use for this. So with these things, these big ones that I bought, just so I don't, you know, burn myself. But we got these big tongs that I'm going to open this up and pour with. So let's get going then. First time doing a pour this large. So, well, let's get cracking, my friends. Not red hot, but good enough. Okay, there's a bunch of slag on the bottom there. I'll just take that off with my handy dandy slag bit. It probably wasn't a smart decision, but hey, you know what? Pliers. This does nothing. Oh yeah, this is working out. We got a nice aluminum bar. Look at that. While we're at it, why don't we just stick the rest of these things in here? You know, might as well. Not melting yet, but hey, it works. Don't do what I do. It's taking a bit to cool, but it should be good by now, or at least it should be good in a second when I put it in. It almost filled up the full thing. This is probably a 1-inch thick bar all the way around. You know, it went well, honestly. I'm surprised with how well this went. Actually, I don't need the respirator on anymore. But yeah, I'd say that overall this was a success.
And I have a second pour to do after, because I have the other 3 bars. Wow, the thing is hot. Yeah, good times. You know, one good thing about all this is that I can actually take all the scraps that I knocked off there, and I can remelt them down, because there's still a lot of aluminum in them. So I can just kind of pop those in there and, you know, it should be good. Good news, I think that this bar actually may be completely cooled now. So I'm going to put my gloves back on. Not completely solidified, not cool. This thing is not cool at all. I'm going to have to put it into the water to do that. But it should be, you know, cooled down enough that I can lift it out of the sand and pop it in the little bucket over there. So it should be nice. Pop these gloves on here, and then I'll grab my pliers, which, you know, that should just be suitable enough to pull this thing out. So, well, let's try. Oh yeah, look at that. This is a bar right here. And then, don't you love that sound? I've essentially made a giant sheet of paper in a way. There's a bee, get out of here. Hey, no. Anyway, now I should be able to just reach in here and grab this thing. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I can just rinse it off in the water a little bit here, and it shouldn't rust, because I don't believe aluminum foil, or at least aluminum, I don't think it really rusts the same way as iron or anything does, or brass. So this should be, yeah, I got just a huge chunk of aluminum. The next bar I'll make much thicker and much smaller, because it doesn't have as much aluminum to melt. After I completely wipe this thing off, I'm also going to rehydrate the sand, so that not only I can cool it down, but so that, because it tends to dry out the sand with all the stuff that goes into this, so like it gets so hot that it'll evaporate some of the water, but it's not too big of a problem, because it's not that bad to, you know, do. But yeah, this was a successful pour. I can polish this down and make it look real nice. I mean, this went well. Look at this. Now it's all nice and dry. I mean, like, also the thing weighs nothing. Like, this is so light. I mean, I know aluminum is light, but my gosh, I didn't know it was this light. It's about 1 centimeter thick and I mean, pretty large, but yeah, this is a very, very light piece of metal, but you know, pretty good nonetheless. Also, one thing I realized is that this was about 6 of my bricks, and I have 3 of them left, including the slag. So, good thing about that is essentially I can make a bar about half the size of that, but I can also make it thicker. So I can make a pretty big, hefty chunk of metal again with this thing. Anyway, now, as I stated before, I'm gonna rehydrate this. You hear that? You hear all that like little bang at the bottom there? Yeah, that's because it's super hot. Like ridiculously hot. And I'm gonna have to just fill that up with water and then remix it. Now see, the aluminum at the sand at the bottom of the little container here is still very hot and dry, like hence this piece, right? This piece literally solidified pretty much underneath the pressure of the aluminum, not much, but enough. And you know, it's now dry as like rock. So I'm gonna pretty much just, you know, spray it down again, as I said. And that should not only cool it, but kind of make it so that it gains its structure again and rigidity, so that I can make another semi-decent sized bar. I actually decided to use my little spatula thing here that, you know, I can just, you know, use to kind of pound things out a bit and, you know, chop it down to make it nice and fine. And it's also so I don't burn my hands, because the sand at the bottom is still like 400, 500 degrees Fahrenheit, I believe. But something like that. It's still hot, that's why it's kind of, you know, black. But, you know, it's, I can fix it. This is what happened with the sand with the brass, but it was actually to a higher extent, because the brass was so much hotter by a long shot. And, you know, that's why it's good that I'm using less power now, because, you know, it makes things a lot easier in literally every single aspect. Oh! Bend down, look at the camera. He has arrived. Anyway, now that the sand is pretty much rehydrated and, you know, just, you know, back to what it was, essentially, I'm gonna kind of put a little bit in the middle here, and then I'm gonna take the wood and pound it down so I can get a nice bar structure, you know, going.
Oh, it's us. It's me. And he's right here, right in the camera. I'm gonna melt down I'm gonna pour the other one.
Now I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna stir it one last time, and then we're gonna pour. The rod is on fire.
You see, kids, this isn't good. Don't do this.
Anyway, let's start pouring this. So we open up our furnace, and what do we find? Oh, we find metal. You know, that's just how it is. Covered in a yellow substance that I do not know what.
Can I touch the crucible?
You absolutely can, my friend. Go right ahead. I dare you.
That's a lot of metal. Oh my god.
Anyway, now we can turn this off, let it air out.
Hey, Mr. Teacher, can I eat the ingot?
Sure you can,
It's
boy.
kind of just like soup. Like soup that you put in the microwave. It's boiling hot and it's liquid. Is this worse than smoking, Mr. Teacher?
Probably. Anyway, now we're gonna just pop this back into the bin like we did last time. So just, you know, grab your gloves, grab your pliers, and, well, we're just gonna go right at it, okay? Oh, it just burst into flames. But not for long. I really don't know what's smoking down
Maybe
here.
unfire it. Here, I got an idea. Just,
I know how to tame the beast.
if something ever catches on fire, cover it with dirt. How do you think God put out the California fires?
He didn't.
Exactly.
Yeah, he did nothing.
You just kind of let it burn, tear that apart in like 2 pieces.
You know, that about does it. We got our 2 bars here. I'd say it was a nice, you know, a nice haul. You know, with the Lego She Furnace and Sir Speedo for the final pour. You know, it went well. It's a good time.
I'm dying of lung cancer.